Okay, let's jump straight into this explainer. Today, we're taking a magnifying glass to something almost every international business owner deals with, but honestly, hardly anyone questions. We're talking about the silent margin trap. You know, those hidden normalized costs of international business payments? The fees we all just kind of shrug off as the cost of doing business. But what if it doesn't have to be? We're going to break down how new financial rails are literally changing the game. So if you've ever looked at a wire transfer receipt and thought, wait, what exactly is this fee for? You're definitely going to want to stick around for this.
And I love starting with this quote from our source material. Not enough to lose sleep over. But that's exactly the trap. It just perfectly hits the nail on the head, right? It captures the whole psychology of why we tolerate broken systems. When a fee is just a tiny little percentage of a massive transaction, it's so easy to just accept the inefficiency. I mean, it's not going to bankrupt you by tomorrow, so you don't really panic. But as we'll unpack today, that exact complacency is what traditional financial systems count on to slowly siphon away your wealth.
So let's get into our first section. Meet Sarah, the e-commerce founder. To get our heads out of the abstract numbers and see how this actually plays out, let's look at a real-world case study. So here's Sarah. She's 38, operating out of Berlin, and she's built this fantastic e-commerce brand selling home goods. She's absolutely crushing it, pulling in $1.8 million in annual revenue. But here is where the plot thickens. She sources her inventory internationally, specifically from Turkey and India. That right there, that's her Achilles heel. Because she relies on overseas suppliers, she's completely tethered to this antiquated cross-border payment system just to keep her warehouse stocked. Let's break this down. Anatomy of a wire. The $60,000 order. Imagine Sarah places her usual quarterly order, $60,000. Now, that money doesn't just magically teleport from point A to point B. Oh no, it has to run a complete itemized gauntlet. First up, her own bank smacks her with a $35 SWIFT fee. Then, the funds bounce over to a correspondent bank in London. Boom, they take a $22 cut. Finally, it hits the receiving bank in Turkey, and they shave off another $18. But wait, here's the absolute kicker, the exchange rate margin. There is a hidden 1.8% fee just baked right into the currency conversion. And, to top the whole shebang off, if she sends this on a Tuesday morning, it finally lands the following Monday, literally almost a week later. So let's do the math on that. Out of her original $60,000, her supplier only gets $58,720. That means Sarah just lost a staggering $1,280 on a single transfer. Let that sink in. Over $1,000, actually closer to $1,300, just vanishing into thin air for the privilege of moving her own money from Germany to Turkey. Now you look at that once and maybe you think, okay, well, unavoidable tax, but just wait until we zoom out. Section 3. The silent margin trap. Death by 1,000 cuts. When you scale that one isolated loss across her entire operational year, the macro impact is just brutal. $9,500. She does this big Turkish order 4 times a year, right? Add in about 8 smaller routine wires to her Indian supplier, and suddenly she is bleeding almost $10,000 annually. Like the source material points out, this is a silent 3 to 5% tax extracted from every single wire. It just eats straight through her hard-earned margins. It's silent, it's recurring, and it's exactly the trap we talked about upfront. Sure, it won't destroy a $1.8 million business, but it's pure, unadulterated profit that she is just handing over to middlemen. But here's where it gets good. The stablecoin switch, reclaiming margins. Fortunately, Sarah didn't just accept this. Last month, she modernized her setup. She actually switched her operations over to stablecoin rails. Same Turkish supplier, same lira bank account on the receiving end. Literally, the only difference is the underlying technology bridging the geographic gap. And the contrast is night and day. With the traditional wire, she had a sluggish 6-day delay and over $1,200 in fees. But with stablecoin rails, her $60,000 payment settled in just 2 hours. The supplier got $59,940, and her total cost dropped to just $60. Seriously, $60? The efficiency leap here is absolutely game-changing. The bottom line, Sarah stopped donating $9,000 a year to the banking system. By simply swapping out SWIFT for stablecoins, she instantly reclaimed her margins. She cut out the intermediaries that frankly weren't adding any value to her business. And now, that's $9,000 of working capital she can reinvest into her brand, or, just take home as well-deserved profit. So let's bring this back to you. When you evaluate your own international operations, your vendor payouts, all those sneaky recurring fees, you really have to ask yourself, how much are you donating to the banking system? Is doing things the old way really worth the cost? Or are you caught in the silent margin trap too? It might just be time to upgrade your rails. Let that percolate a bit. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and we'll catch you next time.